Okay, this evening we'll be in Luke chapter 22. We're going to pick up where we left off on Wednesday night. We'll be in Luke 22. We'll be looking at verses 24 down through verse 38. Luke 22, 24 through verse 38. As we talked about last Wednesday, and the reason why we're switching these back to Sundays because our Wednesday night plan or plans are about to change. Speaking of, to come this Wednesday, we will be having our children's classes again. And what we're doing is we're having one children's class for 6th grade and under in the fellowship hall. We're going to have puppets. We're going to have a Bible story. We'll be singing songs, some old VBS songs, some new VBS songs. And we'll have a craft for the kids to do. And then there will be a adult Bible class. It'll be for the teens as well. 7th grade and up. 7th grade to, as I said the other day, 7th grade to 107 in the auditorium for our parents and our adults to enjoy, while we're also enjoying and giving a Bible lesson to our small children. And that starts Wednesday night. So basically what we'll be doing on Sunday nights is I'll be taking our Wednesday night series that we were doing, which was originally a Sunday night series, but we'll be switching it back to Sunday nights again. You can watch it on Facebook. You can watch it on YouTube. It'll be online about 5 o'clock on Sunday evenings. And today, we are going to continue our study of Luke. We'll be in Luke 22. This previous Wednesday, if you saw the lesson or if you were able to attend the lesson that day, we did the first third of this chapter. See, this chapter is over 70 verses long. And I broke it down into the thirds because of the different events are kind of triggered in different scenes of this final evening of Jesus' freedom. The first third, essentially, we talked about the preparing of the Passover. We talked about the Passover supper itself and the last supper he had here and how he institutes what we call the Lord's Supper at this moment. We talked about the heart of Judas Iscariot, the heart of the Pharisees and Sadducees and chief priests, how they were conspiring on how to kill him and how Judas had conspired with them and that his conspiracy had already began by the time Jesus breaks bread with him in Luke 22:14 at the Lord's Supper and at the Last Supper. Tonight we're talking about, as far as I can tell, okay, these passages we're reading tonight is something that takes place after the Passover and before he gets to the Garden of Gethsemane. It seems as if this is a conversation that takes place as he's traveling from one place to the other. And the reason why I gather that is because of they're going through a market. Jesus warns who has a coat or a jacket, sell his coat or jacket and buy a sword. He who has the money bag here in verse 36 buy a sword. He's talking about, he's giving a lesson about how things are about to get difficult, things are about to get bad. And they take that moment and they purchase a sword, probably from a vendor, it seems as if, or some type of, I almost said grocer, but it wasn't a grocery store, it's some type of marketplace. And that's just as far as I can tell. That's what it seems like to me. There are probably people who disagree with that, but here in verses 24 through 38, it seems like this takes place between the Last Supper, between the Passover meal, and as he's going to the garden, and that's where we're going to be. So let's begin in verse 24 and following. There arose also a dispute among them as to which one of them was regarded to be the greatest. Now, who's arguing here? Well, it seems as if when this is connected with the Lord's Supper and the Passover meal, it seems to be someone of the 12, or some of the individuals of the 12 were arguing, okay, when the kingdom comes and when Jesus, and he receives his crown and he receives his throne, which one of us will be the greatest? Who will be at the right hand? And Jesus stops and we'll listen to what he says. And Jesus said to them, the kings of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who have authority over them are called benefactors. But not so with you. Let him who is the greatest among you become as the youngest, and the leader as the servant. He's saying what you're doing, this is the way of the Gentiles. This is the way of the world. This isn't our way. This isn't the way of the cross. This isn't the way that I've taught you. Kings and lords lord it over each other. Who's in charge? Who's the most important? And they hold it over each other's head. And every person who's in charge, there's one more person in charge, and they're known as the benefactor. And Jesus says, this isn't our way. This isn't your way. You see, that's not our goal. That's not our task to lord over who's the most important or to figure out who's the most special. No, our task as Christians, our task as disciples of Jesus is to lower ourselves. He said, you're to be younger. You're to act younger. You're to be a servant. You are to be the one who serves. The leader is supposed to get down on his knees and serve. And it's interesting that this passage and this teaching is taking place moments after Jesus just washed the disciples' feet. He's telling them you're to serve one another. Not lord things over each other. He continues on in verse 27, for who is greater than the one who reclines at the table or the one who serves? Is it not that the one who reclines at the table? But I am among you as the one who serves. He says in everyday world, who's more special? The one who serves or the one who gets served? In the everyday world, it's the one who reclines. But Jesus says, you have seen my life. You have watched me, and you watched me, your teacher and your master, serve. Verse 28, and you are those who have stood by me in my trials, and just as my Father has granted me a kingdom, I grant you that you may eat and drink at my table in my kingdom, and you will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. He said, you're all going to have a place. But meanwhile, you need to act the way I acted. You've seen my trials. You've seen my task. You've seen the way I have served. And now you must serve like me. And you'll be in my Father's house. Humble yourselves in the sight of the Lord, and he will lift you up. He's saying you're all going to have a special place. You're all going to have your own throne. You'll all have authority. You'll all be given power. But don't worry about that. Worry about serving. Worry about humbling yourself. Worry about pouring your life out like I have poured out mine. Simon, Simon, verse 31. Behold, Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And you, when once you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Jesus looks at Peter and says, Satan's ready to test you. It's happening soon. He alludes in a way when he brings this up where Satan has asked to sift you like wheat. I think of Satan's conversation with God in Job chapter 1, how Satan had a plan for Job, and God said, what have you been doing? And Satan says, going to the holy earth, and not Jesus, but God says, have you considered my servant Job? And Satan had a plan for Job. I've always envisioned this conversation that Jesus talks about here in a similar way, that Satan has gone before God to ask to sift. Let me show you what this guy's really about. Let me put him to the test. let me sift through him, and we will see him for what he is. And Jesus says, I pray that you will remain faithful. And he tells Peter, you will be their leader when you do turn back. Jesus is already referring to his repentance. Jesus is already turning how he will feel sorry. Jesus is already referring to how he will apologize for what he did. He will be the leader. I believe he's even referring possibly in the events that took place in Acts chapter 2, the events that took place in Acts chapter 10, where Peter preaches the first gospel sermon, where he preaches a sermon where 3,000 people are saved that day. I believe he's talking about when Cornelius, the first Gentile, would eventually be saved. How he holds the keys of the kingdom, how he unlocks it for the Jews, and then how later he unlocks it for the Gentiles, so that all persons of all nations will be saved. At the same time, Jesus is also giving him a warning that your feet are about to be held in the fire, Peter. Satan's asked to test you, and he's coming. Peter says in verse 33, and he said to him, Lord, with you I am ready to go both to prison and to death. Peter looks at Jesus and says this before all the apostles. Oh, I'm ready. I will pass. I'm ready to die next to Jesus. And Jesus said to him, I say to you, Peter, the cock will crow today the cock will not crow today until you have denied me 3 times that you even know me. Jesus tells him this knowing he's going to fail the test. And he tells him that. He tells him previously, don't worry, you'll be tested. Satan will sift you. You will fail and you will be redeemed. And Peter says, no, not me. I will die with you. I'll be successful. I will pass this test. And Jesus says, you won't, Peter. You're going to deny even knowing me before this day is over. Verse 35, Jesus said to them, when I sent you out without purse and bag and sandals, you did not lack anything, did you? And they said, no, nothing. And Jesus said to them, but now let him who has a purse taken along likewise also a bag. Let him who has no sword sell his robe and buy one. For I tell you that this which is written must be fulfilled in me. And he was numbered with the transgressors. For that which he refers to me has its fulfillment. When they said, Lord, look, here are 2 swords. And he said, it is enough. He says, originally when I sent you out, I believe in this text he's talking about the limited commission. You didn't have purse. You didn't have extra sandals. And yet you went without anything. You were provided for. You had everything you needed. Even though you took nothing with you, you had everything you needed. Jesus tells them in this text, but now I say to you, take your purse with you. Take your money back with you. If you don't have a sword, sell your robe and sell an extra robe and buy a sword. Jesus is telling them, be prepared. Guys, something's going to happen and you're not going to like it. I hope you're prepared for it. Trials are coming. Something's about to happen. And you need to be ready. In this text, the apostles believe he's talking about actual swords, and they said, hey, here's someone selling 2. Like, do we need more? Is this okay? And Jesus said, it's enough. I don't believe his message in this text was, hey, everybody should have their own sword. Everybody should have their own weapon. I believe it's a call of eagerness to be ready because of the trials that they were about to face. Next week we'll begin in verse 39 and we'll be looking at the garden and the arrest and the beginning of the trials of Jesus Christ. May God bless and I hope you have a wonderful day.